I drove through the November rain, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. The call had come at 11:47 p.m. My daughter's voice, barely audible, whispered 3 words that made my blood run cold. "Dad, help me." Then nothing. I'd been trying to reach Sarah for 2 weeks. Every call went to voicemail, every text, unanswered. Her mother-in-law, Patricia Ashford, had always been particular. But this silence felt different, wrong. The GPS led me to a conservation area 2 hours north of Toronto, near Muskoka. Dense forest, no streetlights. I almost missed the turnoff onto a logging road that hadn't seen maintenance in years. My truck bounced over ruts and fallen branches, headlights cutting through the darkness like desperate prayers. That's when I saw it. Sarah's car, driver's door hanging open, interior light still on. The battery must have been dying for hours. I jumped out, calling her name. The rain had turned to sleet, stinging my face as I searched. And then I found her, 50 meters into the woods, curled against a fallen birch tree. Her jacket was torn. Blood matted her dark hair. Her right wrist hung at an unnatural angle. "Sarah. Sarah, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize me. Then tears started streaming down her face, mixing with the rain. "Dad," she whispered. She said, "I contaminated the bloodline." I felt something inside me crack. Sarah was half Filipino. Her mother, my late wife Maria, had been the most beautiful soul I'd ever known. We'd moved to Canada when Sarah was 3, built a life in Mississauga. Maria had passed 5 years ago from cancer, and Sarah had been my whole world ever since. Who said that? Patricia, my mother-in-law. "Dad, I'm pregnant." I was pregnant. Her voice broke. "I don't know if the baby." I scooped her up as gently as I could. She cried out when I moved her wrist. As I carried her back to the truck, she kept whispering fragments of a story that made my blood boil. "Can you walk?" I asked when we reached the vehicle. She shook her head. I placed her carefully in the passenger seat, cranked the heat to maximum, and grabbed my phone. "I'm calling 911. "No." Her hand shot out, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. "Not yet. Dad, you don't understand. They'll know. They're tracking. My phone. They put something in my car." I looked at her wrecked vehicle. "Who's they?" "Patricia and David, my husband." She said the word with such venom I barely recognized my gentle daughter. "They've been, for 3 years, Dad. 3 years of hell." 3 years. Sarah had been married to David Ashford for 3 years, and I hadn't known. How could I not have known? I pulled out of the conservation area and started driving south, toward Toronto General Hospital. As we drove, Sarah told me everything. She'd met David at the University of Toronto, where she was studying architecture. He was in law school, charming, attentive. The Ashford family owned a prestigious law firm in Rosedale, old money going back 4 generations. Patricia Ashford sat on the boards of the Royal Ontario Museum, the National Ballet, all the right charitable organizations. The engagement had been quick, the wedding elegant. I remembered feeling proud, walking my daughter down the aisle of that beautiful church on Bloor Street. I remembered Patricia's tight smile when she'd greeted me at the reception. "Your daughter is very lucky," she'd said. "We don't usually welcome outsiders into the family." I'd thought it was just upper-class snobbery. I'd been so wrong. "It started small," Sarah said, her voice hollow. Comments about my appearance. "Sarah, dear, perhaps less ethnic jewelry at firm functions." "Sarah, have you considered lightening your hair? David's children should have a more refined look." I felt my jaw clench. "David let her talk to you like that?" David encouraged it. "Dad, he was never who I thought he was. The moment we got married, everything changed. He stopped working late at the firm. He was home every night, but only to monitor me. Patricia had rules. I couldn't work. Ashford wives don't have careers. I couldn't see my friends. They're not our caliber of people. I couldn't even call you without David listening on the extension. Why didn't you leave?" I tried. Last year, I packed a bag, called a taxi. Patricia was at the house within 20 minutes. She told me if I left, they'd destroy you. Your construction business, your reputation. She had files, Dad. Detailed files claiming you'd done shoddy work, put people in danger. All lies. But she had lawyers who could make it stick. She said you'd lose everything, maybe even face criminal charges. My hands tightened on the wheel. I'd built my construction company from nothing after we immigrated, every project done with integrity and care. The thought of someone weaponizing that against me, using it to control my daughter. And the baby? Sarah's face crumpled. I found out 6 weeks ago. I was terrified to tell them, but morning sickness gave it away. Patricia was pleased at first, until she heard the due date. She did the math, realized I'd gotten pregnant right after they'd gone to London for 3 weeks last spring. She'd left David specific instructions to prevent pregnancy. He'd been putting something in my vitamins. I swerved slightly, had to force myself to steady the truck. What? Birth control. Without my consent. But he forgot while they were away, and God, Dad, I was so lonely. I just wanted someone to love me. I thought a baby might change things. She laughed bitterly. Patricia called a family meeting the next day. She laid out her plan very calmly. I would have a quiet miscarriage. There were medications that could ensure it looked natural. The Ashford family doctor would provide whatever was needed. The bloodline, she said, had to be protected from contamination. My vision blurred with rage. I pulled into the hospital emergency entrance, hazard lights flashing. Dad, wait. Sarah grabbed my arm again. There's more you need to know. I refused. I said I'd go to the police, go public, whatever it took. So they changed tactics. While I held her hand, waiting for hospital staff, she told me the rest. Patricia had started a campaign of psychological warfare. Photoshopped images of Sarah with other men, left where David would find them. Fake emails from a burner account, love letters to a fictional affair partner. She'd drugged Sarah's coffee and called David at work. Your wife is acting erratically. Maybe you should come home and check on her mental state. Within 3 weeks, David had her seeing a psychiatrist, one who was a family friend of the Ashfords. Within a month, she was on 3 different medications that made her foggy, compliant. The doses kept increasing. I started hiding the pills, Sarah said, pretending to take them. I needed to be clear-headed. That's when I found the documents. She'd searched David's home office while they were at a charity gala. Bank statements showing payments to Dr. Reginald Simmons, $15,000 monthly for 2 years. Medical supply orders for mifepristone, the abortion medication. GPS tracking subscriptions for her car, her phone, even a pendant David had given her for their anniversary. I photographed everything with an old film camera I found in the basement. Actual physical evidence, nothing digital they could erase. I hid the photos in the one place I knew Patricia would never look, the servants' quarters. Mrs. Chen, our housekeeper, she's been kind to me. She's been hiding things for me. The emergency doors slid open. 2 paramedics rushed out with a gurney. Miss, what happened? Before Sarah could answer, I cut in. My daughter was attacked and left in the woods. She's pregnant and has been assaulted over several hours. She needs immediate medical attention and a rape kit examination. Sarah's eyes widened, but she nodded. The paramedics moved into action. Sir, you'll need to wait. I'm not leaving her. Sarah squeezed my hand. Dad, while I'm being examined, you need to make a call. Do you remember my godfather, Uncle Tommy? Thomas Chen. My best friend since we'd immigrated together in 1987. He'd built a successful restaurant empire, but more importantly, his son Michael had become one of Toronto's most formidable civil rights attorneys. Call Michael. Tell him I need him. Tell him I have evidence of forced medication, unlawful confinement, and attempted forced abortion. Tell him I want to file both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit. And Dad, her voice hardened in a way I'd never heard before, tell him I want to destroy them. I made the call from the hospital corridor while they took Sarah for examination. Michael Chen answered on the second ring. Uncle Robert? It's 2 a.m. I need your help. It's Sarah. 15 minutes later, I'd told him everything. There was a long silence. Uncle Robert, this is serious. Like, national news serious. You're talking about one of Toronto's most prominent families. We're going to need ironclad evidence. She has photographs, documents, and there will be medical evidence from tonight. What happened tonight? I took a deep breath. Sarah tried to escape. She'd been planning it for 2 weeks, gathering strength, pretending to take their pills. Tonight, she told them she was going to bed early, then climbed out a second-floor window. She'd hidden supplies in the woods near their Muskoka cottage, the one place she was occasionally allowed to go. How'd they find her? The GPS tracker in her pendant. She didn't know about that one. David got an alert. They drove up there. Found her trying to get to the main road. Michael, they beat her. Patricia held her down while David tried to force pills down her throat. Sarah fought back, broke free, ran into the woods. They chased her for over an hour before she managed to hide. She called me the second they gave up searching. Jesus Christ. Michael's voice was sharp now. All business. Okay. Here's what we do. First, Sarah doesn't talk to anyone except police and medical staff, and only with me present. Second, we file a police report tonight. Third, we get that evidence she collected. Fourth, we prepare for war, because the Ashfords aren't going to take this lying down. There's something else, I said. She's worried about me. Patricia threatened to fabricate complaints about my business. Let her try. Uncle Robert, I've reviewed your company's record. 15 years of perfect safety compliance, glowing client reviews, industry awards. Any lawsuit she files will get laughed out of court. Besides, once we go public with this, she'll be too busy defending herself. A doctor emerged from the examination room. Mr. Santos, we've completed the initial assessment. Your daughter has a fractured wrist, multiple contusions, signs of long-term malnutrition, and medication side effects. The pregnancy is still viable, but she'll need close monitoring. We've also collected evidence of assault. There are defensive wounds and bruising patterns consistent with being restrained. Is she okay? Physically, she'll heal. Mentally, she's been through severe trauma. I'm recommending immediate psychiatric evaluation by an independent specialist, not her current provider. And Mr. Santos? The medication levels in her system are concerning. Someone's been giving her enough sedatives to keep an elephant docile. Michael had heard through the phone. Doctor, this is attorney Michael Chen. I'll be representing Miss Santos. Can you ensure all medical records and evidence are secured? This is going to be a criminal case. 3 hours later, Sarah was settled in a private room with a police officer stationed outside. Michael had arrived with 2 associates and enough legal paperwork to sink a ship. We sat around her hospital bed, planning our next move. The photographs you took, Michael said. Where are they now? Mrs. Chen has them. She's at the Rosedale house. But we need to get them before Patricia realizes what's happening. Once David discovers I'm missing, they'll tear that house apart. I checked my watch. 5:30 a.m. What if I go get them? Too risky, Michael said. David knows you. He might already suspect Sarah contacted you. Then send someone he doesn't know. Michael pulled out his phone. I have investigators on retainer. Give me the address and description of Mrs. Chen. We'll have a team there within the hour. By 7 a.m., we had the photographs. By 8 a.m., Detective Sarah Kowalski, from Toronto Police Service's Domestic Violence Unit, was sitting in Sarah's hospital room, recording her statement. By 9 a.m., Michael had filed emergency restraining orders against both David and Patricia Ashford. By 10 a.m., all hell broke loose. Patricia Ashford arrived at the hospital with 3 lawyers, demanding to see her daughter-in-law. The police officer at the door turned her away. She tried to push past. Security got involved. In the chaos, Patricia made the mistake of shouting down the hallway. That manipulative half-breed is lying. She trapped my son, and now she's trying to destroy this family with false accusations. A nurse filming on her phone caught every word. The video was on social media within minutes. Michael watched it on his phone and smiled grimly. And there's the racism on record. That helps. Patricia's lawyers tried damage control, but it was too late. By noon, the Toronto Star had the story. By 2 p.m., CBC News was running it nationally. Prominent Toronto family accused of abuse and forced abortion attempt. The Ashford family's perfect facade cracked. Dr. Reginald Simmons, the family psychiatrist, voluntarily surrendered his license rather than face investigation. Bank records showed he'd been paid over $300,000 by the Ashfords over 2 years. Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, came forward with her own testimony. She'd witnessed Patricia verbally abusing Sarah hundreds of times. She'd seen David monitor Sarah's phone calls. She'd been ordered to report Sarah's every movement. I stayed because I wanted to protect her, Mrs. Chen testified. I'm a mother too. I know what it looks like when someone is being slowly destroyed. 2 other former Ashford household staff came forward with similar stories. A pattern emerged. Patricia Ashford had been controlling and abusing her son's wives for decades. David's first wife, it turned out, had divorced him after only 8 months. She'd signed a non-disclosure agreement, but now she came forward too. "They made me feel like I was crazy," she told police, "like everything was my fault. Patricia wanted grandchildren, but only the right kind. When she found out my grandmother was Cree, she lost her mind. Said I'd hidden my indigenous blood and tricked David. They offered me money to leave quietly. I took it because I was terrified." The case became national news. Indigenous rights groups got involved. The Filipino-Canadian community rallied around Sarah. Immigrant advocacy organizations held press conferences. David Ashford was arrested 2 days later at the family's Muskoka property. He'd been destroying evidence, shredding documents, smashing hard drives. Too late. Michael's team had already seized his computers with a warrant. The digital forensics were damning. Years of surveillance footage from hidden cameras throughout the Rosedale house. Recordings of Patricia coaching David on how to manage Sarah. Text messages discussing medication schedules. GPS logs showing everywhere Sarah had been for 3 years. "We own her," one of Patricia's texts read. "She has no power, no money, no options. She'll give us what we want eventually." But it was a recorded phone call from 3 weeks earlier that sealed their fate. "Patricia, if she won't terminate voluntarily, we'll have to be more direct. The medication isn't working fast enough." "David, what are you suggesting?" "Patricia, an accident, darling. She goes to the cottage, takes a fall, loses the baby naturally. These things happen, especially to women under psychiatric care who aren't taking their medications properly." "David, and if she survives?" "Patricia, then we have her committed. I already have Dr. Simmons's signature on the paperwork. Once she's institutionalized, we can petition for medical guardianship. The baby goes up for adoption, preferably to a proper family. Sarah gets the treatment she clearly needs. Everyone wins." The Crown prosecutor called it one of the most calculated cases of domestic abuse and attempted murder I've seen in 20 years. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I sat in the courtroom every single day, holding Sarah's hand when she testified. She was 6 months pregnant by then, visibly showing. The jury couldn't take their eyes off her. She told them everything: the isolation, the forced medication, the threats against me. The night in the woods, when Patricia had held her down and David had tried to force pills down her throat. "I thought I was going to die," she said quietly. "And I thought my baby was going to die. And the worst part was knowing that they thought they were doing the right thing, that in their minds, my child's life was worthless because of my blood." The courtroom was silent. David's defense tried to paint Sarah as mentally unstable, a gold digger who'd trapped their client. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. David Ashford was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for assault, unlawful confinement, and attempted forced abortion. Patricia Ashford was sentenced to 12 years for assault, conspiracy, unlawful confinement, and attempted murder. But the criminal case was only the beginning. Michael filed a civil lawsuit on Sarah's behalf. $50 million for pain and suffering, emotional distress, lost career opportunities, and punitive damages. The discovery process was brutal. Every Ashford family secret came out. Patricia's mother had been committed to an asylum in the 1960s for refusing an arranged marriage. Patricia herself had been engaged to a Jewish man in college. Her parents had paid him $100,000 to disappear. David's father had been caught having an affair with the family's black housekeeper in 1995. Patricia had the woman deported. 3 generations of cruelty, control, and racism, all documented. The Ashford family law firm collapsed. Clients fled. Partners quit. Within 6 months, the company my daughter's abusers had been so proud of was bankrupt. The civil case settled out of court for $38 million. Patricia's lawyers advised her to pay rather than face more public exposure. Sarah used $5 million to establish the Maria Santos Foundation, named after her mother. It provides legal aid and support services to immigrant women trapped in abusive relationships. Mrs. Chen became the foundation's first employee. Sarah kept enough to ensure she and her baby would never be financially vulnerable again. The rest she donated to domestic violence charities and organizations fighting racism in Canada. I was there when she gave birth. A healthy baby girl, 8 pounds, 2 ounces. Sarah named her Hope Maria Santos. No Ashford in sight. Dad, Sarah said, holding her daughter in the hospital room. Do you know what the best part of all this is? What's that, sweetheart? She'll grow up knowing her grandfather, knowing her mother's culture, knowing that Filipino blood, immigrant blood, survivor blood, that's not dirty, that's strong, that's beautiful, that's freedom. I kissed my granddaughter's tiny forehead and thought about Maria, about the life we'd built in this country, about the strength it took to survive and thrive, despite people who wanted to diminish us. Your mom would be so proud of you, I whispered to Sarah. She'd be proud of both of us. 2 years have passed now. Hope is running around my backyard in Mississauga, laughing as she chases butterflies. Sarah is back in school, finishing her architecture degree. She's designing affordable housing for immigrant families. David gets out of prison in 6 years, Patricia in 10. Sometimes I wonder if they understand what they lost. Not the money or the reputation, though they lost those too. They lost the chance to know an incredible woman and her beautiful daughter. They lost the opportunity to be better than their prejudices. But that's their burden to carry, not ours. Sarah and Hope come for dinner every Sunday. We cook Maria's recipes, adobo, lumpia, pancit. We tell stories. We laugh. We heal. Last week, Hope looked up at me with those big dark eyes and said, "Lolo, tell me about Lola Maria." So I did. I told her about the woman who crossed an ocean for a better life, who faced discrimination and hardship but never lost her kindness, who believed that love was stronger than hate, always. That's your bloodline, I told Hope. That's what runs in your veins. Not contamination. Legacy. If you're reading this, listening to this story, I want you to understand something. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it wears expensive clothes and sits on charity boards. Sometimes it hides behind words like tradition and standards and protecting the family. But love, real love, doesn't destroy. It doesn't control. It doesn't measure worth by bloodline or bank account. Real love protects. Real love frees. Real love stands up and fights when someone tries to convince you that you or your children are less than human. Sarah could have stayed silent. She could have taken the settlement money and disappeared. But she chose to fight, not just for herself, but for every woman who's been told she isn't good enough, every immigrant family that's been made to feel like outsiders, every child who deserves to grow up knowing their heritage is something to celebrate. That's the lesson here. Your blood, whoever you are, wherever you come from, carries stories of survival and strength. Don't let anyone tell you it's dirty. Don't let anyone make you smaller to fit their narrow view of who deserves dignity. And if you see someone being crushed under that kind of cruelty, speak up. Mrs. Chen could have stayed silent, kept her job, looked away. But she didn't. That courage saved my daughter's life. Stand up. Speak up. Fight back. Not with their weapons of hate and control, but with truth, with law, with the simple revolutionary act of refusing to disappear. Because in the end, the Ashfords lost everything, and we gained something they'll never understand. Freedom. Real, genuine, beautiful freedom. And that, my friends, is worth more than all their old money and empty prestige combined. Hope Maria Santos will grow up free, and that's the greatest revenge of all.